Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Telling Tales. Welcome back to Symbaroum. Only for some of you, it might not be welcome back because we are streaming for the very first time on YouTube as well as Twitch. Amazing. The miracle of modern stuff. It's a magical day for everyone involved, even people who don't know we exist, which is a healthy minority of people at this stage. Yeah, what a time to be alive, says Stephen in the first non-TT comment in our chat, which we were ruminating over whether StreamYard compiles the chats together for our benefit. And they do. So even better, we don't have to click around. It's all good. It's all wonderful. And hopefully you enjoy this. We're going to be streaming all of this Symbaroum arc on both of them, as well as any new series that crops up on the channel. But we probably won't convert over existing running series. Just should we? Actually, let us know if we should, because part of me is like, oh, that's confusing for people somehow. But maybe it isn't. Let us know. Okay, we're back with Symbaroum. Before we start bringing people on and start talking about what we're going to do in this story, in this arc, let's do the usual promo nonsense. If you check below the video, whether it be Twitch or on YouTube, you will be able to find a number of links to our Discord, links to obviously Twitch and YouTube, links to our social media, our merch page, our Patreon, all that kind of nonsense you're familiar with. They're all down below there. Give them a look and even a click and even a browse. Who knows? It could be exciting. We also run a whole bunch of series. Obviously, Wednesday is Symbaroum. Mondays is currently alternating between We Deal in Lead and Warhammer. And Thursdays is kind of basically there's one more episode of Wicked Ones to come on Thursday. And then that's going to switch to Yellow King. And currently that's scheduled for the 30th of May. So that will be exciting stuff. We also run or try to run one-shots about once a month. We haven't been doing great at that this year, but we're trying to get a bit better. We tried to schedule a one-shot of Cloud Empress and had to leap that because of things. But hopefully that should be with you, I believe, in June. That sounds about right. June the 9th, I want to say, is Cloud Empress. So hopefully that'll happen. Great stuff. Yeah, I think that's all the promo. So let's start bringing on players. And one thing actually I will say before I bring on players, we won't be doing a huge recap today beyond the very briefest of skipping over things. And that is partly because there is a very, very comprehensive recap video of the last everything in the campaign, essentially, that's now available on YouTube. I will put links to it in both chats because I'm caring like that. He says, trying to get to the YouTube chat. There we go. Yeah, and that recaps everything that we've done. So if you have any questions, just go look at that. Hopefully today will be, if you're starting fresh with us, hopefully it'll be kind of understandable anyway, because it's, well, you'll see, it's quite a narrative heavy story. We'll see. So with that in mind, let's start bringing on the players and introducing their characters and all that good stuff. And first, as it almost always is, it's Chris. Hello, Chris.
Pleasure to be back, Matt.
Lovely. So Chris plays Steo, if we could have the art up for him, please. Steo is former infantryman and Thistlehold guard, turned sellsword adventurer and resolutely determined person who doesn't want anyone else to go on adventures. By pain of death, if possible, in preventing them going to the mystical mystical forest of Davakar. Chris, we won't go into like stuff that Steo has got up to between adventures just yet. We'll do that as part of the session. But where's Steo at in his head at this point in time? You think entering into this story? What's his deal?
Steo is desperately trying to be anywhere else except here. Steo's trying to go to ground pretty resolutely, and I recall that the last session was all up for leaving at dawn to march towards the forest and the one tribe of the northerners who kind of owe the party a favor, and just staying there until this whole thing blows over. I don't think I'm going to get my wish.
Probably not, because at least for one, it would probably be quite a boring campaign if that's how it ended right now. But yeah, sure. Let's bring on our second player. It's Stephen. Stephen plays Elindra, a former Templar novice turned sellsword. There's a lot of that going on, turning into a sellsword.
Well, yeah, but we're all turned sellsword, I guess.
Yeah. She's also undoubtedly the furious psychopath of the team to a certain degree. Everything's an economy of scale, you know what I mean? So yeah,
she's I guess she's the most furious psychopath of the party.
Yes, yeah, as these things go. Yeah, so where's Alindra's head at? As the basically the opposite, the anti-Steo in the team, I'd say, on the the continuum of Steo, Elindra is the anti-Steo.
Okay.
In terms of her point of view.
Most psychopathic, least Steo. I hope
Yes.
that we're going to do all of the characters on this scale.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Plot it on a chart. Where's she at? She's amazed and relieved to have survived the events of the previous adventure. I think she's probably pleased that not only did they make it out of Davokar, they made it out of Davokar with some things that mean that they get a payday. But also noticing that for the amount of mortal peril that her and her cohort have put themselves through, like, it's not retiring money. Like, yeah, I guess she was hoping for more. So I guess, yeah, now it's going to be figuring out what's next, right? You're on mute. First of the series.
That helps. That first of the series. There we go. And it's me. So let's bring on our next player. It is Sam, who plays Askarai, our changeling ranger, scout, archer, and all-round killer of things in one shot. I would say that Askarai falls on the Steo continuum almost at the point where Elindra is. And in some ways, even beyond Elindra. I'd say he's kind of like roughly in the same spot, maybe sometimes a little further towards Steo, sometimes a little further away. And I'm delighted at the thought that someone might start with this episode and go, what the actual fuck are they talking about?
I think I agree with that. I think Askarai is definitely on the Elindra side of the spectrum rather than the Steo Arendar side. I think that's definitely the divide in the party. But yeah. We need Steers. We need Elindras. It's all part of a good team.
Yeah, absolutely. And where's Askarai's head at? What's his thinking about the events so far and the events to come?
I think he's thanking his lucky stars that we've survived. Probably is the main thing. It was looking very dire a lot for a lot of the last campaign. Like there was basically no chance of us surviving, and somehow, with a bit of luck, we've kind of thread the needle in that no one has decided to kill us so far. And at the same time, I think Askarai is also thinking similarly to Elindra that, I mean, we put ourselves through a hell of a lot just to get away with like a little bit of money, and I mean a good amount of money, but as Elindra says, it's not retirement money, so we have to keep going. But I think Askarai is thinking we need to lay low and then look for a bigger score, and whether that becomes Symbar, whether that becomes something else. But for now, is probably not unhappy with laying low for a little while at least.
Absolutely. And I love the way that even the phrasing of these things kind of like, we sense the Steo continuum there, right? Like Steo is saying, like, I just want to find a place to lay low and keep out of things until everything's more sane. And if I have to do anything, like, try and keep more people safe. And Askarai's like, we need to find a bigger score to take down,
Yeah.
So yeah. That's good stuff. So let's bring on our next player. It is John. John plays Sir Arendar, the last surviving member of House Dar. can see there Ferren, his loyal meerkat. Arendar is a somewhat at times naive and idealistic duelist, essentially, or fencer. That's kind of his fighting style. John, how are you? And what's in the brain of Arendar?
I'm all right. I'm excited to be back, and well, back in Symbaroum. I guess I've been here in Warhammer for weeks. As for what's going on in the head of Arendar, I mean, I generally assume some sort of like elevator muzak. But I think in this case specifically, he's still got a few lingering worries about like he sort of it seems to have stopped the immediate gold rush on ancient cursed cities, but there's still at least one person out there with the capacity to open the door with all the horrors behind it. So he's a little bit worried about that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you know, no one's told him what to do, so he's just carrying on.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to just plow forwards, right? What
Yeah.
harm has ever come from that?
You just got to keep doing what you're doing until a strange shadowy elf figure comes and tells you to do something else.
Hey, is that calling me out? Is that calling my narratives out? Is that
No,
what you're
that's
doing
calling
right
out the
now?
owls for not telling me how to live my life, Matt.
Fair enough. Is that in the game or just in general? Okay, let's bring on our final player for this evening. It's Mike. Mike plays Father Anton, Theurg of the sun god Prios. Doer of good things, holy man, and it has to be said, well, this is less Anton and more Mike, perpetual roller of terrible dice. Mike, how are you? How's Anton?
Doing good. Anton is probably on his like black pilled trajectory of like, and then things got worse, and then things got worse, and then things got worse. I don't think he's like super hopeful about the future because the kind of forces that are coalescing around the party and our narrative are just like getting more dangerous and closer to us.
Mike,
So
this is supposed to be escapism. Can we keep the real life chat to the side, please?
yeah, that's where Anton is, very much an extension of myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, and that's our party. As I said, if you want a more full and detailed sort of description of the events so far, I'm sure we'll lightly touch on them. And ultimately, all you need to know is that the party has gone through a lot of kind of adventuring and to do with like finding the location of the lost city of Symbar. Things went fairly badly, both in terms of generally in the adventure itself and also kind of the political happenings in the various factions that make up this world. So it feels like you're on the verge of a kind of time of chaos, right? That's the kind of feel of it. But otherwise, we're just going to pick up. And like I said, if you do want more of a recap, check out the video I linked in chat not so long ago, and you will find those details. All right. So, forewarning, this session is one of those that I call narrative heavy. And what that means is Matt wrote a lot of stuff because he's just a frustrated author, and he's going to read out lots of bits of it. Not all at once. I'm not going to just read for 2 hours, but it's definitely going to be scattered through. And then we'll have sections in between where we have like scenes, and it's exactly the kind of thing I frequently go, oh God, this feels really railroady and horrible. I'm a terrible GM. This is awful. And then I do it anyway because I can't stop myself. And afterwards, everyone goes, oh, I really enjoyed that one. So I don't know what the fuck you want. Clearly not agency. That's, that's not on the table. So with that in mind, we're going to pick up our story. And for context, just for time, this is starting, I would say, around 5 months or so, maybe 4 or 5 months after the end of the Witch Hammer. Okay? So here we go. A lone figure on a steed makes their way slowly towards the west gate of Thistlehold. pulling a thick woolen shawl around their shoulders, despite the warmth of the early summer afternoon. The horse is old but strong, as is the rider. Every step the mare takes is accompanied by a soft clink from a bundle hung at its side. One bracer buckled to the saddle nearby, as if to assure covetous onlookers that the sack stores armour and not treasures. The heavy bronze spear slung next to the bundle is similarly off-putting for would-be bandits. After sharing a brief greeting with the gate guards, the figure disappears into the border town with a visible grimace of relief, and then appears once more at the south gate, but a few hours later, having a new sense of exhausted purpose and a fresher steed. This time there is no greeting for the guards, but instead they simply overhear some muttered curses and grumbling about the aches and sores of continual travel. The figure disappears to the south in the rising twilight. 3 days later, the same figure can be glimpsed entering the baronial town of Gorinda, enduring a brief summer shower of rain before walking the horse to the gate stables. Pushing his way through excited throngs of people, far too many on the streets for a day without a festival to its name, he comes to the central marketplace of the town, where a large tent has been erected in front of the largest buildings for miles in every direction. A towering sun temple, now standing partially empty with the departure of its Templars. The area in front of the tent is packed, but surprisingly well behaved, falling to an absolute hush as an elderly woman steps up onto a wagon with a steadiness that belies her age. The hush is broken a moment later by a single youth in the crowd shouting loudly, "Lightbringer! Lightbringer!" The cry is taken up by the other folk of Gorinda, and soon it is an overwhelming cacophony of noise. Desaber the Old raises a hand to the crowd, smiles, and begins to bless them in the name of Prios. The figure may be the only person in the crowd not overcome with religious fervour, and his eyes pass over the various guards and followers, surrounding the tent until they light on a familiar group stood behind the wagon. One of them aided the Lightbringer up on the wagon, and is now watching her with careful concern as he absent-mindedly fiddles with a small stone plucked from his robe. Next to him, a young man kneels by a semi-tame meerkat, whispering to the wild beast to keep it calm as it starts slightly from the wall of sound. In front of them both are two armor-clad women, one tall and one much shorter. They wear matching green tabards cut in a Templar style. The towering one has a long blade held scabbarded in her hands for a quick draw if needed, and the other has her spear leant against the round shield she carries across her torso. And behind all of them, in the shadow cast by the tall tent, a slender and lithe-looking individual keeps watch over the tumultuous crowd, his wooden mask panning from left to right as he boldly holds a nocked arrow to his bow. The travelling figure lets out a satisfied grunt, thoroughly dwarfed by the noise from the crowd, shoulders his pack and heavy sack of armour, and skirts the crowd as best as he can towards the tent and the wagon. All of you are keeping watch on the crowd as Desaber the Old blesses it, and it's not exactly a speech, it's more like a rousing religious, like a revival ceremony. And you all notice Steo at approximately the same time emerging from the side of the crowd, coming towards you, looking glad to see you, but also tired and a little bit annoyed. Specifically that you left Thistlehold before he returned, which was the plan, that you would all return to Thistlehold. So I'm not throwing you in the deep end without any context of this. You have all been hired on as guards for Desaber the Old as she takes what she refers to as like a kind of essentially a kind of, I don't want to use the word tour because that feels too modern, but like she's like a pilgrimage around across the north of Ambria, not Alberator. That would be far more dangerous. Visiting towns, giving blessings, raising the spirits of the common people in this increasingly difficult time. You've agreed. She's paying you, and also Anton seemed to think it was just a good idea in general. And honestly, it got you all out of Thistlehold at a time when you kind of want to be a bit more anonymous. So there we go. But of course, Theo wasn't there, and you left a message for him to catch up with you, and here he is. And off you go. You can talk over the noise of the crowd as long as you're close to each other.
Is the speech still happening? Is the speech over?
It's kind of still happening. It's not really a speech. She basically is like, she gives a very short speech and then is basically blessing people one by one. Like, people proceed to the wagon. You're not the only guards. I want to absolutely emphasize this. There are somewhere between 20 and 30 guards. But normally, a representative of the Sun Church would have been guarded by Templars. There are no more Templars. So you have been hired. Most of you are sourced from Mother Mahira's agency, and a few of the others are like very high level elite mercenaries who are known for trustworthiness and competence, and they have also been spent out on by the Sun Church. So yeah, there are a couple of people you know as well with you, but let's have you as characters interact first.
Oh, great job, lads. Lying low, 100 kilometers closer to Yindaros, in the middle of a massive crowd next to one of the most famous theurges in the history of Alberator.
It's the perfect plan. I see you found us.
It would be hard to miss a crowd this big. I'm glad you're all okay, for what it's worth.
There seems to be no point in trying to lie low when Thistlehold's loudest man was going to be joining our ranks soon anyway.
Oh God, is Serix Adio coming as well?
I hope not. Like, we'd be in even more danger with him around.
I mean, if you wanted to... Sorry, you go.
No, go ahead, Alindra.
I was going to just say to Theo, like, if you wanted to hide, you know, there is one great big forest I know, but you didn't seem in a rush to go back there.
Is anyone? I like that's for pretty good reason. I think we're slightly safer here. I mean, in any case, we're kind of hidden in plain sight. Everyone's focusing on the saber. No one looks around. We're just guards. It's a bunch of us. I feel like it's working out pretty well.
Steady work, steady income.
Look, at least it's not the deep forest.
Yeah. No lindworms. No horrible cursed monsters.
Please don't give a list of things that are not here, because I know you ask, right? Those things will be here within 30 minutes if you keep going down the list of things that have nearly killed us.
No evil necromancers. No zombie hordes.
Scry.
Nearby, a smaller figure with a large glittering silver sword strapped to his back emerges from the crowd and tosses a fresh apple to each of you. Urfons, the goblin, looks up at Steo and bites into his apple and says, "You're late."
Of course I'm late. I was 3 leagues off Carvosity.
I thought you'd have had enough of Carvosity.
I've had enough of politics, Urfons. I've had enough of politics and adventure and big crowds where bad things might happen. But far be it from me to turn down an invitation from this group.
Is there any news from up there?
What can I get a quick?
Yeah, sure. I mean, not really. You weren't allowed on Carvosity.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have been on Carvosity. I would have been at the wee village.
Yeah,
maybe, and...
no Ambrians are allowed upon Carvosity yet, following the Queen's actions. So, yeah, you definitely didn't manage to talk to the High Chieftain, which I know is one of your intentions. Yeah, nothing really.
Still under embargo. Can't really blame them after that. Fucking politics. but no armies, and that makes a nice change.
Okay. As you are standing there conversing, you see that another individual who stood near the wagon kind of peels off away from the other guards and wanders over to you. He's a tall, quite powerful looking man with like a shock of blonde hair. He kind of looks like he could be anything between his early 20s and his late 40s. It's kind of hard to pin down. He has a very youthful look on his face. The rest of you know him as he's called Fenring Melian. Melian is quite a significant noble house, but you haven't really talked to him about that yet, or what he's doing, kind of guarding a caravan with the Lightbringer. One of you does recognize him a bit more. All of you probably seen him at one point or another, but one of you has interacted with him a lot more than the others, and that is Father Anton. Anton, if you recall, when you did your mission for the Lightbringer, there was a Templar who seemed to be her personal guard who dealt with a lot of stuff for you. This is him, but he no longer wears the garb of a Templar. So clearly he left the order rather than go off with the secessionist Templars. He's a friendly guy. He's also extremely competent, and he's kind of the informal leader of the caravan in all matters where the Lightbringer kind of defers to his martial expertise. He, as I say, he wanders over and he kind of nods at everyone and gestures towards Theo and says, Sergeant Steo, isn't it?
Former Sergeant Steo.
See, I knew you were a sergeant before I even talked to them, because about 5 years ago, Sergeant, you pulled my younger brother out of the salons of Symbaroum for starting a brawl and gave him a very solid and much-needed rap on the head.
Oh, God, what was he even doing in the salons?
Oh, he was being a little shit, because that's what he is.
Well,
Your fellow heroes of the sinkhole tell me that you'll be up for joining us.
it looks like it. I'm up for joining this bunch, and I think I owe the Lightbringer a favor or two.
Well, no favor will be required. The Lightbringer has assured everyone who guards on this caravan that they'll be well paid, and it's my job to see that they are. That wagon over there, that's the quartermaster. Feel free to dump anything you want in there. And as for where you ride and where you sleep, with your friends. I'm sure they'll show you the ropes.
Sounds good. I should probably put this armor on at some stage.
It looks like the Lightbringer's wrapping up, so I'm sure there'll be a long queue of people asking for blessings until the light fails us, but I'll speak to you later. He turns around and walks off.
Who the hell was that?
He's kind of in charge around here.
Okay.
I assume that we know that, Matt, right? Like if we've been
Yeah. Oh yeah, you've all talked to him very consistently. I will also, because I know I say these weird names and everyone goes, oh yeah, that's a series of letters. So I will write his full name in our private chat. If you give me a moment. There we go. Fenring.
Oh, he's got
to refer to him primarily.
Just one L.
He's got a surname, has he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know the Melian noble house. They're kind of the noble house in terms of kind of merchant business. They kind of ascended to where they are through their colossal trade network that they've set up throughout Ambria. Quite unusual for one of them to have been a former Templar or like was essentially a glorified caravan guard. But yeah, there's probably a lot of them, so you know.
Steel will unlash his the spear, and not wearing any armor at the minute, but still try and look like he's starting work.
Absolutely. And I mean, it doesn't really look like there's anyone here in Garinda who will cause trouble. People's reaction to the Lightbringer is one of awe and veneration for the most part. So really, it's a case of like, getting people to calm down a bit rather than kind of actively having to protect the Lightbringer, who's also to a certain degree capable of protecting herself. If the stories are to go by, there's a reason why she is the Lightbringer.
And if she can't, Prios will, right?
Exactly. So there we go. But let us kind of like move on from the rest of this, and also move on from kind of staying overnight in Garinda. In the morning, the caravan gathers itself. You have there are 4 semi-covered wagons, each with a number of horses, and as I say, all this is protected by let's say about 25 guards and a couple of additional novices and like a caravan master and a quartermaster and things like that. So it's not an insubstantial little party. And you proceed on outwards from Garinda on the road towards the east. The road to Dardawal is more of a rough path than a well-maintained Queen's Highway. And while there are other travellers, they are fewer and further between than in the more settled lands surrounding Thistlehold and Garinda. Some forest wildlife has travelled south, mostly boar and deer, but the howling of wolves can be heard as the moon rises, and the caravan has to stop briefly to allow a family of brown bears to cross the road as it cuts through a relatively small patch of woodland. Is there anything anyone would like to do? Any interactions you'd like to have? Don't feel you have to get them all out now, because there's going to be a lot of these little breaks. So in fact, you know what I'll do to avoid to put people on the spot intentionally, which is kind of reducing pressure in some ways, and increasing it. It's reducing pressure in 4 directions and increasing it in 1. So that's an overall gain. So what I'm going to do is each time we have a little one of these breaks, I will roll a die, and it's Theo. Chris, any kind of interaction or thing you just want to do, a little scene you want to have, anything like that?
I wish I'd had time to prepare for this. At the crossing of the bears, I'll probably kind of give a little nod to everyone else and go, do you ever wonder how the other ones are doing?
Sam looks so confused.
I'm sure those other bears are going to be doing great, right? The Garrig are they've got the best possible care that they can get. I mean,
Anton, you still have our payment for that, don't you?
I do. He says, frantically opening his PDF. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do.
I mean, they basically gave they gave you like a writ of payment from the Byaga clan, right? So, yeah,
I guess like for anybody that hasn't caught up on the previous bit of the adventure, this is just briefly, we rescued some Garug cubs, which are like gigantic polar bears, because someone had been along and killed their parents. And in order to basically save them, we delivered them to a tribe that quite like their bears, the Byaga, who were pretty grateful to receive them, but haven't been able to completely pay us yet, because whatever they think these cubs are worth is more than they could pay us at the time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's about the long and short of it. Yeah. Okay. Some brief reminiscing about bears aside then. A couple of days later, a stop is made at the advice of Father Anton by a narrow, picturesque stream in the shadow of a copse of trees. There's a down of moss covering a shallow bowl of earth next to the stream, littered with fading blue petals. And as everyone gathers round for a food and a rest along the way, let's have a choice of what to do, something or a scene or an interaction or a conversation from Sam, please.
Okay. I think Askra is going to ask Stia about his journey down, his travels. How was the road? Any more signs of weird clan business going on? Any remnants of the army left over?
Not that I was able to see, and everyone's a bit more tight-lipped these days around Ambrians. But for my part, I've been learning a bit more about being safe off the road as well as on it. Trying to figure out all these different creatures and different noises they make. Go stay busy. And obviously, at this point, Askrai, I think the forest is the one place, the light side of the forest is the one place where I think we might be safe.
I did not think I'd ever hear you say that.
I never thought I'd say it, Askrai. I never thought, but I never thought I'd meet the frickin' queen either. Hushed voice there.
Well, I'm the High Chieftain. They're all the important people now. But
I hate meeting important people.
the only thing that could drive you to appreciate the forest. It must have taken a toll on you. I'm glad you made it safe. I'm glad you're appreciating the forest. It's not so bad. I think it's better than Ambria in a lot of ways.
Less politics, isn't it? Or at least less modern politics. The rest of the politics is buried.
I think the politics of the forest is so over our heads that we can't even begin to understand it, so we don't have to worry about it. And Ambria feels a little bit close to home.
That's a good philosophy, Askrai.
Well, be following your lead next time.
And on that note, another day or so passes, and the wooden enclosure of Dardor sits against the dark edge of Davakar under a bright and cloudless summer sky. As the town grows closer, the rush of the River Ianor can be heard, separating the eastern duchy of Naragor from some of the dangers of the forest. Ahead of the front horses by several paces, Urfons raises a fallen sign from the side of the road that reads, "No more plague," in poorly scripted Ambrian. He brings it to the attention of Desaber, who rides in the lead wagon. "We need not fear if the plague has passed, Master Urfons, but I will ask no one to walk the streets of Dardor with me, if they instead wish to camp outside until we depart." This is passed along the line, and after some hushed words, every single guard and novice passes through the wooden gates of Dardor. Let's have on our way into there, someone can have a little interaction or choice or conversation or something, and we'll go with Father Anton. And that might be quite appropriate because I don't know if people are picking up on the fact that we're going the same route that Father Anton did the first time. Because when you went through Dardor or past Dardor, it was closed because of they weren't allowing anyone in because of the plague. So, Anton, is there anything you want to do or say, or even if you're a question you want to ask or something you want to look out for, or anything?
I might approach Thenring and just ask, Thenring, remind me again of the direction of travel and the ultimate destination that we're heading towards here. I'm sort of familiar with these parts from a previous journey.
Honestly, I'm not sure the Lightbringer even has a destination in mind specifically. We are simply wandering on this pilgrimage, as she calls it. From each town we go to, she chooses the next destination. That is honestly as far as I know at this stage. Although it wouldn't be unlike her to keep something hidden from me.
Of course, she has her ways. Is this a town that you're familiar with? I've passed close by once before, but it was closed when I was last here.
I'm familiar with all the border towns on Davakar. They're where, in my younger years with the Order, I spent my time fighting the darkness of the forest. I was commended for my actions several times, which led me to the service of the Lightbringer. So yes, I've been to Dardol before. It's relatively quiet and sleepy, honestly. Most of the really dangerous stuff to come out from the forest is nowhere near Thistlehold nowadays because of the patrols that the mayor sends out.
Yeah, and yet it still befell a terrible fate, it seems. Hopefully not too many were lost in the plague.
These things seem to come and go as they will, Father. But at least some survived. He looks around and gestures. The people of Dardol seem to be worn and battered by the plague that ravaged their town, but they are slowly finding their feet again. They see the arrival of the Lightbringer as a portent to better things and attempt to shower her with gifts from what little they have, mostly herbs, fruits, and mushrooms they gather from the forest's edge and dry for trade. She refuses all of this, but does not mind at all if others in her caravan modestly partake of this largesse. You stay over. She has another kind of like communal event where she blesses everyone and you stay overnight. And rather than go to someone for a scene they want to do or something like that, what we'll actually do is something a little more in depth instead, or at least more particular. And again, though, I'm going to roll and we'll see what happens. Okay, this is Arindar. Now, instead of this being like a little scene you want to have or interaction, let's talk about what you've done for the last 4 or 5 months. Okay, so what were when we left off the Witch Hammer? What were the things on Arindar's list? I know he he was responsible for selling some of the booty that you gathered in Davakar. Was there anything else that Arindar particularly wanted to do or achieve in the kind of months following the Witch Hammer?
I'm trying to remember if I had anything off the top of my head, but from what I can think now, it had been suggested for him to contact was it called the Hall of Knights in Indoros?
Correct.
And he'd made a half attempt before by letter, which had gone missing, which Decameda warned him about. But maybe he would have tried either another letter, or if he'd have had time to go to Indoros. I
mean, you would have had time to go to Indoros, but I guess we have to I would prefer it if you had not.
That's fine.
Let's just leave it there.
Then I have not. Let's say I've been trying to write another letter, and other than that, probably using some of my money from the previous adventure to see if I can do any good at the refugee camp.
Okay, yeah. I mean, money can always help at the refugee camp. The Sarvola's mission at the refugee camp has kind of shut down in the chaos following the events of Wrath of the Warden and also the disappearance of Father Sarvola from Thistlehold. So, there's nothing official there now, but there are always emissaries from the Sun Church going there and trying to help.
I think what I did between sessions was try and find craftsmen and skillsmen and musicians and stuff, and people who need tools in order to. I know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to patronize people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds good. If you did want to write a letter to the Hall of Knights that had a better chance of getting there, I mean, I don't think it's outside the realms of possibility. You might even approach Decamado to help you with that. He's got pull with the Queen, and the Queen seemed to kind of be interested that a member of House Dar was still alive.
I do. I'm maybe slightly worried at the moment that I don't want the Queen and the Queen's people
Yeah.
to pay too much attention to me.
Yeah.
But I might hire a specific trusted courier to take a letter
Yeah, you could definitely do
directly
that.
for
You could
me.
definitely do that. Yeah. And that'll be a little cost, but like we can work that out later.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. And you haven't had a reply yet, but that's not entirely unusual.
Yeah.
So
Beyond that, it is mostly just waiting for an elf to turn up and tell me that something needs doing.
sure. Yeah. I mean, the elves don't have to turn up for you and Steo now, do they?
No, they don't. That's true.
They can send messages in dreams, which they have so far. Well, let's wait and find out. So let's move onwards. After the blessing and after the night spent in Dardor, the caravan departs, and the road east now runs alongside the River Ianor all the way to Castor. No, it doesn't. Does it? Yes, it does. Sorry, I got very confused because I was like, you're about to ravage. No, it's just the way I phrased it. The road east now runs alongside the River Ianor all the way to Castor, and it clearly has seen both activity and repair in the months since the plague passed from Dardor. On a few occasions, the caravan passes groups of workers attempting to clear debris from the banks of the river and plant stones in the muddier stretches of the nascent highway. Each time, the Lightbringer insists on stopping and blessing their good works, to the clear astonishment of the Ambrian majority of them, and the polite respect of a scattering of Odav clanfolk and goblins who regard their awestruck colleagues with confusion. Let's have, if we don't mind, some kind of interaction-y thing from Sarindar again.
I would like to try and get a quiet word with Fenring, because most Farron's
Popular.
efforts here have been to try and reclaim the Dar side of his family, but his mother's family were merchants, and
Right.
she's dead.
Yeah.
But maybe there are some other members of the family. Sauron's going to have a quiet word with Fenring and be like,
Oh,
this is my
the- well-
grandfather's name. Do you think
Right.
that maybe anyone might have survived or still be trading or anything?
Right. So, but what you're saying is she wasn't a Melion or anything like
No.
that. Just
No.
you figure he's from a trading, the trading noble family.
Yeah.
Maybe he. Yeah.
If anyone has
sure.
stayed in the business, then they might be connected to the Melions, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? You take the opportunity to do this as both of you are like taking a break from walking and are like sat in there's like a rotation, right? Of people sat in the back of the wagons all walking, and you're on a rota essentially through the day. And you're both sat in the back of the rear wagon together, kind of watching the River Ianor go by when you raise it with him. And he's sort of eating a bunch of blackberries he plucked from the side of the road, and says, "The name doesn't ring a bell, young Dar, but I left my family at a very young age, partially because I had no head for figures or balance sheets or profit margins, and even less for being interested in the goods enough to actually run the production side of any business. I'm sorry, I just don't know. I could probably, the next time I send a letter to my uncle, I can probably ask. He's not exactly high up on the rungs of the house, but he might know. I can ask."
I understand perfectly, and I'm. My apologies if my question was presumptuous. But if it wouldn't put you out too much, then that would be very kind of you.
I will do it. By all means, find a scrap of paper and write me the name down. I'll never remember it.
I will do that.
Okay. 4 more days of travel on the road east brings the caravan to where the edge of the forest pulls away across the river, leaving a vast swathe of cut tree stumps and stacks of lumber. The river has calmed from its late winter and spring surge, and many barges travel from the lumber fields to the east and south. At one point, a group of labourers gather on the opposite bank to bury one of their own, waving back in thanks as an indistinct old woman on a wagon across the water stands and raises her hand in a benediction to the departed. Let's have a scene from Elindra, please.
Yeah, you have properly put me on the spot.
It's all right.
So that's terrible. I've completely.
If you don't have one, that's cool. Like, yeah. How could you've known it was coming?
I know there was no way of telling. Like, I think if I was going to pick a sort of vignette from on the road in general, I think Elindra and Revelia might have looked around the other kind of people in the sort of guard caravan, and perhaps seen if there were any other like former kind of Templars or like people that had been had previous lives before becoming kind of mercenaries, and of course like talking to Father Anton and maybe even the Saber. I don't know how like available she is in quiet moments.
She's just sat on a wagon. Usually, you can go up and talk to her. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if Elindra would instigate it with the Saber, because I think there's still some wariness there. But I think I think she would be interested in like getting involved in like some of those conversations just about like faith, and about I suppose how in the last few months, being out of Davakar and actually ironically not wearing what was left of the Templar tabard and kind of having something new, I think has given her some space to in a way feel kind of closer to Prios and sort of closer to like the church. I think she's sort of like taken off like that weight of some of those previous like expectations that she'd had or that she'd put on herself. So I think she would talk about this with Revelia, because I guess Revelia is also very much like trying to find out who she is. She's
a former Templar novice herself. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's say that you basically, if you don't think you'd start it, let's have you walking nearby as one of the Sunchurch novices who's traveling with the group is having a conversation with the Saber essentially about the Templars seceding, and talking about kind of like what it must be like to have that kind of like crisis of faith that has like led to this sort of thing. And you overhear the novice saying, I have written Lightbringer, that kind of despair that the Templars have felt, the presumption that Prios has died. I have read that despair, Lightbringer, that despair is a sin in and of itself against the life granted by Prios. And DeSaber kind of slowly shakes her head, like not an immediate dismissal, but kind of like a processing of it, and says, I think it is reductive to call despair a sin. Despair is a curse. And we must try not to judge those who are acting out of the pain they feel, even when they do painful things. Prios gives warmth to us all. It is just sometimes blocked by shadows. Do you want to? It's perfectly
Yeah,
fine
yeah.
for you to just listen to this and take it in, or do you
See,
want
well,
to?
oh
join
yeah,
in?
I think like I've been thinking on the kind of despair that the Templars have experienced, and it seems to me that it's not a sin. Perhaps the things that they've done in the name of that despair are a sin, but it seemed to be to me more similar to a plague of the mind. This idea took hold amongst their ranks. This blasphemous idea, but that came from fear and despair and hopelessness and very human things to feel in difficult times. But I don't quite understand how it spread. I didn't see the seeds of it when I was part of that organization, and I haven't felt the call of that despair as it's gripped the rest of them.
That is all very well said, Sir Elindra, and I feel that these diseases, these plagues, as you say, a virus of thought, they do spread, and at their heart is often a man or a woman who has felt that despair, that pain, and is now spreading it to others. And perhaps it is simply a case of all the people who follow them have put their faith in their leader, when perhaps it should have been in Prios.
It has never seemed to make any kind of sense to me to discount or to bet against Prios. I cannot follow the Templars' new beliefs because I know that Prios is alive and is still working through us and watching over us. I've seen too much to believe otherwise.
The saber literally gestures up at the very bright sun in a cloudless sky and says, "Of course he is. We are reminded of that every day. And we are also reminded at the end of the day what the world would be like without him." Okay. Let's move on. The barges on the river increase in number as you approach Lorriman, where low stone walls act as more of a fence than an actual defense against threats from outside. Under advisement from Thenring Melian, a camp is set outside of these walls for the people of Lorriman to come receive their blessings from Desaber. I know these lands well. Many of the folk here are rough and ready, but of a good spirit, Lightbringer. Some are not, and they make themselves known at the edge of a knife. If we are to guarantee your safety, I would ask your indulgence in this matter. The Lightbringer seems saddened, but nods that she will bow to the former Templar's wisdom. Let's re-roll, because it's going to be a fresh roll, because everyone's had one. Ooh, anyone could be horribly put on the spot. But it's Theo, so it's evident we're going to all just roll the same order of things all over again. Theo, any conversation, any scene, any even just little thing you want to describe Theo doing?
I think as the camp settles in, Steel will kind of find a quiet moment with Arundar and just catch up. You've had...
Sorry, before you do, this seems like a very good point to tell you what communication you've had from Malahai. You have both had communication from Malahai. Simple, but in a dream you both had on the same night, he came to you both, and it is literally like you have a dream that he is standing in front of you. He was standing in front of you in the forest. You don't know if that's just like symbolic, or you don't know if that's literally where he was when he was sending the message. He very quickly informed you that all the events that you went through have been shared with other members of the Iron Pact. He currently has nothing to kind of like advise you or order you in. Carry on doing what you're doing. And also wanted to inform you that Father Solange survived his wounds and is being cared for in the Hall of 1,000 Tears. That's it.
So I'll go up to Iron Dar and go. Funny for them to break silence with what is essentially no news, isn't it?
It's nice to know they're not ignoring us, though.
Still, I feel that whatever I wish I knew what the Lightbringer was up to. There's far more to her than meets the eye, as we've all seen.
Yes.
She seems very sophisticated and very... She seems like she knows what's going on with all this politics.
I wonder if this is perhaps a way to steel the people against the Templars' influence? Or... I'm not really sure, to be honest.
No, that's the thing. She keeps... Very, very canny woman. But it's nice to have someone like that who... Look, the church is its own bucket of problems. But I would not expect her to strike out against us. I suppose this is a safe enough place to be for now.
This is what I thought. I know we agreed to lay low in Thistlehold, but where's going to be safer than right next to a Lightbringer?
One of those weird situations where probably very far away from a Lightbringer is also pretty safe.
Okay, that feels like maybe the end of the conversation. Mere hours after the camp is set, Fenring's advice is proved wise, as Urfons and a fellow hiring from Mahira are attacked in broad daylight outside a tavern. The lightning-fast goblin has to headbutt their assailant to the ground and aid his companion back to camp, where a relatively mild stab wound is seen to by Father Anton and the other novices. As night falls, the assailant stumbles weeping to the wagon circle and wails for forgiveness for his sins against a servant of the Lightbringer. He cries out that he's a drunk and a fool and begs to be absolved before Prios. DeSaber shares a quiet few moments with him, watched over by Fenring and Urfons with their blades drawn. By the time the morning comes, he travels as a new guard on the caravan, wide-eyed and freshly clean from the river. His primary duties are to see to every need of the man he stabbed, who now rides in comfort in the rear wagon. So, as you gather yourselves to depart from the town of Lorriman, let's have a new opportunity for a scene, a conversation, a thing, weirdness, or whatever. Even just a little moment of my character does this. And that's going to be from Sam. This is literally exactly the same order as last time.
I think Askra is gonna talk to Elindra, and specifically about the exact opposite of what Steer and Aaron talked about.
How do we kill the Iron Pact?
We'll build a highway to Symba.
I mean, basically that. Like, maybe we should have spoken about this before Steer got back, but I feel like you understand where I'm coming from more than the others. We have this information. We know that Degesto has it as well. It's taken a lot of work to get the tablet translated as far as we can, but I don't know how we're going to convince the others to go along with this. I don't know how you're feeling about getting there, about what we need to do next, about everyone else involved.
I've got questions for Matt before I answer about what's happened in the intervening time. Again, in the interest of recap, in terms of like information to help us go find Symbar, we kind of finished up the last adventure with one of 2 copies of a brass rubbing of a now destroyed tablet, right?
Yeah.
Degesto
Well, you know
got
what?
the other and went away, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually a good opportunity for that information. So let's actually do Sam's, because Sam was the one dealing with the rubbings, right? So let's actually do Sam's flashback bit first now, and I'll tell you about Degesto and stuff, and then you can go on with your conversation. How's that sound?
Yeah.
So first off, Degesto and Malamai, they're both in Thistlehold. They weren't asked on this. Maybe they wouldn't have wanted to anyway. They're living off their earnings. They're doing fine. They have expressed an interest in working with you again, but the Lightbringer did not invite them. Not specifically, don't bring them. She was just like, you 5, do you 5 want to come on this? Via Anton. So that's that, basically. As for, as we literally indicated in the very last little post-credits sequence of the Witch Hammer, as we indicated, the like rubbings of the tablet are very difficult to interpret and translate. Obviously, like you're doing it in random chunks to avoid sort of, getting rumbled. And I would say if you're being cautious about that, then you probably have done hardly any of them so far. Literally the only thing, here's what you've learned. It's definitely written in ancient Symbaric, specifically a very difficult dialect to understand. That most of the people you've gone to are like, I've never seen this before. It speaks of a place called Symbar. It also speaks of a person called Symbar. You don't know if they're the same thing somehow.
Okay.
That's basically it. From what you've suspected, maybe about a fifth of it has been translated so far, and it's sporadic bits, so you can't even place them together to form a coherent fifth. You're not 100% sure that what this tablet is a map to Symbar.
Okay.
But it definitely seems to be something that would very much help someone along the way.
Okay. Valuable information, but perhaps not the full picture.
Correct. Hopefully that has provided enough information for your conversation.
Do we have a sense of if Degesto is also doing something similar to this? Like, I think that's where I would have been hanging out with Degesto.
He keeps checking in on you and seeing what's you think he's realized you're far more sensible about this stuff than he is. So I think he's kind of relying off you. You're still on mic, Stephen, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. That's probably a very good thing for us. I felt like we would be a bit more cautious than Degesto.
Yeah.
But in that case,
Yes.
I think Asco would continue the conversation more along those lines of like, we're making a start on getting this all figured out, and maybe there's some next piece of the puzzle we'll need to go and find, or that this will lead the way to. But I don't know how we're going to convince the others, and I don't care about Symbar. I just want to be able to fucking retire at some point. Like this seems like the only way out, and
yeah, Symbar is not the only way that we could go into Davokar and get paid, and it's probably the most dangerous thing we could do in Davokar, but it is also probably the place where the reward is biggest, right? I think we got to see if we can We're going to see this translation work. The fact that we haven't heard stories of a gold rush in the forest gives me some confidence that that trail ended on the shores of Volgoma, and is just like, we know what happened, and Soleil knows, and Degesto knows, and that's it. And I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
We're going to have to take it real slow and careful with the translations. And I think when they're done, we will have a better idea about what will be involved in that expedition. And I think we can have that conversation with the others then. And if they don't want to come, they don't want to come. Just so long as we don't ever think they're going to get into a position where they're going to try and stop us.
I mean, that is a worry.
I don't think they've got it in them. I think we've been through too much together.
Ooh.
I worry about the influence of the elves. Yeah, impact on both of them. They kept it secret from us for a while. The elves are...
They're a danger.
And they're like, of all the people who can manipulate and control humans, I don't know what the elves are capable of, but it feels like things beyond our understanding for sure. And
well, or we stop the translation and we burn the scroll and we keep ourselves safe and we look at smaller targets. That's the alternative.
I just think that way we'll be doing this forever until one day it catches up with us, and that'll be that. A life of scrounge around in the forest and eventually dying to some horrible creature.
I've seen too many people going out of Thistlehold saying, just one more time in the forest, just one more time and then I can retire, and wanting to do something big. And I can understand wanting to do something big, because if it works, you only have to do it once. You only have to survive it once. But we'll see. The opportunity's not here yet, and we've got to be careful in the meantime.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we should talk to Anton. He feels maybe more neutral. Maybe like he will have a good perspective for us, but also maybe be a helpful ally if we can get him on side.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
That sounds like the climax of the conversation to me. Again, a blessing goes forward, and the next morning the caravan gathers and it sets off from Lorimon along the road further on to Castor. The road along the river grows firmer still as the days pass towards Castor, and late on the 3rd you find yourselves at the growing market village where you crossed over the Ianor and out of Davakar well over a year ago. It is now bustling with traders, many of them Odavs from the west and Vajvod clan folk from further east. Several warriors are there wearing the livery of the Duchy of Seragon, watching the central square, and a troop of Queen's Rangers idle in front of the newly built inn. This obvious show of security is new, perhaps provoked by the near war with the High Chieftain, perhaps by the regular skirmishes with the Karahar to the north, or maybe due to the notoriety that recent bandit attacks in Seragon have garnered. The caravan stops at the inn overnight, and then in the morning the high stone walls of Castor come into view. Let's have a little scene from someone. And this is literally exactly the same again, I think. Mike, Father Anton.
I'd like to try and catch the saber for a few minutes in between her responsibilities and my own. So yeah, if I could just talk to her, I think Your Worship, I just would like to try get your perspective on everything that's happened, because so much has happened and so much has changed, and it is in my nature to worry, and I worry for you as someone that I have become close to over the last few months, and with the factions that are split in the church, I'm concerned about how much of a target you are, and whether we can give you the security that you need, and to further go on from that, whether our presence in fact maybe makes you even more of a target, given the difficult relationships we have with some factions in this world.
Well, first, Father Anton, I think we have moved beyond the requirement for honorifics. Simply calling me Disaber, or, if you must, Lightbringer, will absolutely suffice. Secondly, I appreciate your concern. I think I am less of a target than I am seen as an opportunity for the various power players within the Sun Church at the moment. It is a position I am well aware of, and a position I have guards in place against that I need not trouble you with. Things have been set in motion, Anton, that address your concerns and hopefully neutralize them. Actions are being taken. It is right to worry, but do not let it consume you. Simply let it make your senses keener and your guard against the corruption and evil of men more keen.
Thank you for your advice, Saber. While I worry, I still retain my faith, and that gives me heart going forward. As ever, I am here to serve, and if there is anything you need from me beyond my duties in this caravan, then do let me know.
Well then, I am very glad to hear that, Father Anton, for I will have a task for you. But not just yet. Instead, have yourself a task to enjoy this delightful day that Prios has given to us. And I will tell you of the other when the time comes.
I look forward to it, and I will enjoy this day.
And what a day it is to enjoy another cloudless sky as you walk along the last stretch towards Castor. News of the imminent arrival of the Lightbringer has clearly reached Castor somehow, perhaps from a lumber barge travelling downriver, and a welcome party is gathered by the towering gates. At the head of the gathering is Duke Gadramai Kohinoor himself, sat blinking in the morning sunshine astride a large charger. He meets the caravan with much enthusiasm, despite obviously being in significant physical discomfort. Soaked in sweat, he speaks of his honour in greeting such a saintly guest before inviting the whole company to stay at the garrison at the north of town. Obviously, for those of you who've been to Castle before, you are well aware of the garrison. You've been there yourselves. As you proceed through the gates, a familiar figure falls in alongside all of you on a horse of her own. Castor's watch captain, Eleva. She observes all of you with a wry smile. Fallen upwards into grand company, I see. And you, Father, I feel like I see you more often than your own mother. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. Just a fleet visit this time, I believe.
No cults to round up. None that I know of, anyway.
It's reassuring to hear.
And how have the rest of you fared since you last left Castor?
Pretty horribly. I think it says a
Would
lot
we
that
had
my memories here are some of the fondest over the past few years, which I think speaks more about our travels elsewhere than it does our time in Castor.
That sounds terrible.
would that we had a few days at leisure. It would not be enough. It would not be enough.
Yeah, it's just good. Of course, Arendar and Ilindra don't know Watch Captain Eleva. So, yeah. She shrugs and says, well, it's been quiet here, apart from the sudden insistence on the Duke and actually spending time in Castor. There's been no sign of the Lindworm. Just fled to the forest as far as we can tell. Hasn't returned. Small mercies.
Given our luck, I imagine we'll be meeting it again, but we'll try and keep it away from here.
Well, I'd appreciate you if you manage that. Go on, Stephen.
I was going to say, looking at Ascarai and Steve and Anton, just kind of say, I can only assume that one of you just smells really appealing to lindworms.
I think
will-
my cloak has something to do with
I do look at Ascarai at that.
They
I did
it's-
think about taking it off before coming into town, but
Yeah, look at the guy with a lindworm skin cloak. Yeah. There's just something about the party that drives lindworms mad, and I can't.
I
Don't
like to
worry.
think as a threat. You know, do your best, Lindworm.
Why do you keep bothering us? Is it because we skinned your dad?
Steel's coming back with a human bone helmet just to round out the offense we're causing.
Does Ascarai's cloak have a backstory?
I mean, kind of, but not particularly. You know,
I think it is
Certainly-
magical. Asgard doesn't
it's
use the magical
definitely-
part of it.
it's definitely got less of a backstory than the spear.
It's good to
To
know.
us, the Lindworms
As most
might
things
disagree.
do. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Eleva seems to have obviously various things to attend to. Her garrison seems to be turned into into a hotel at the behest of the Duke, and she proceeds onward there for the purposes of seeing to everything. And after a day of blessing and attending to the oh no, hang on, what am I doing? I read the wrong bit. It doesn't matter. Carry on. Gadramai, the Duke, throws a feast for you all in that evening, in which he drinks a little too much, but not embarrassingly so. He clearly does not actually live in Castor, as Eleva alluded to, and if the rumors you hear passing around the hall of the garrison have any truth, he spends very little time in Castor at all, which obviously might indicate why he had no idea that the primary town of his duchy had been taken over by a monster worshipping cult the last time you were there. But there we go. After a day of blessing and attending to the people of Castor, you all attend another feast thrown by Duke Gadramai in the Great Hall of the garrison. Towards the end of the evening, he spends some time directly with the Lightbringer in council and emerges looking, if not chastened, then at least slightly more sober and concerned. In the morning, you depart on the road southeast past Seragon Forest. A well-armed patrol leaves the town ahead of you, and you see signs of several others being prepared for departure, some wearing the livery of Seragon and others yet in the personal arms of the Duke. You probably had the chance to head out if you wanted while you were in Castor for a short amount of time and maybe try and catch up with other people you knew in Castor. I'm guessing the primary person would have been Semmel, that you might have tried to do that with. If you did try to do that, and feel free to say if you did, you located, because you know where he lives in Castor. His neighbors told you that he hasn't returned in months, which would indicate that he didn't return to Castor from Karvosti. So, is there anyone else you would like to catch up with from Castor?
I think I would. I think I would go for a quick pint if I can get some time off in Semmel's parents' bar. Because I do recall that being.
Is it his parents or is it his
family?
I think
or is it an uncle? Yeah, it's a family.
Yeah, it's something.
They recognized him when he came in.
Yeah. I know the one. Yeah, the tavern that we used as our base when we were there. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, you can go with the drink there, and the drink is on the house. Because I know the landlord. Like, in fact, I think you maybe saved his daughter's life. Isn't that the thing? Because the mercenary captain was threatening you by.
I think we gave ourselves up.
Because Anyway, your arrival is greeted with enthusiasm and free food and drink.
And the last thing I want to do is that night, because I know Semmel is in the Iron Pact, I'll basically use my dream power to basically send him a snapshot of the whole gang, stood in a.
It doesn't work. You can't send it to anyone with an iron ring. You don't even know how to send.
Oh,
I don't think so.
I'm sure it can. I've read this a number of times. I'm pretty sure I can. Okay, well, let's hold up. Let's hold up on that, and then let me double check. But I'm pretty sure it allows me to send a picture. I can't do the holograph that.
I just mean my thing wasn't you can't send. My thing is I think you are limited in who you can send it to until you understand more about how this all works. I think you can only send stuff to the person who's given you the ring.
Okay.
That would just make sense to me because the Iron Pact is essentially a cell-based organization. So why would they just allow you to contact anyone with a ring? And in fact, I think that makes so much sense that I've just defined that that's how it works. So,
I mean, this is making a possibly unforeseen point, but what about Arendar's ring, which has come from the old, I think at some point an elf that was in Thistlehold?
But
that's true.
I got it from you, who got it from a corpse in Thistlehold, but Malamai was the one who kind of gave me permission to wear it.
Yeah, maybe
Malahai,
he activates
Malahai,
it, for Malahai, yeah.
I think there's something more mystical to do with it. I don't think you could just ping out messages like it's ICQ in the late 90s. So
basically, Malahai is our handler.
Yeah.
So it's between us
seems
and
to be
Malahai.
now. You suspect also that perhaps Tiara Tiana could contact you if she wished. But it definitely doesn't work as just a thing. Yeah. Cool. Disappointed the players. Good first session. So, off the back of that, then, you proceed out of Castor with the caravan. 3 days of travel along the ill-reputed roads of Seragon Forest pass without incident, and it is difficult for Anton to even pick out the stretch of the road where the bandit chief Malrogan cut down his traveling companion Iamion. The rough timber fencing of the town of Elvelin seems like it could barely hold back the smallest band of raiders, but the borders of Seragon tend to hold firm against the Karahar.
Uh-oh.
That's Matt and John.
Uh-oh. Indeed. Well, I'm glad Matt found a way to make the only magical item I'm ever allowed to use a little bit worse this session. I do agree with his retcon, though. It makes it a bit less wacky, doesn't it? Because it's kind of just a mobile phone with the reading of what's in the book.
Yeah.
Just be mass mailing all the elves every day.
Yeah.
The thing is, my understanding of what was written is that you can use it to send a ping, an image or a short video, I suppose, to anyone who you know is in the Iron Pact. So I could have. Anyone remember that noble Ambrian lady who we just left in the elvish dungeons? Those were the days.
Oh yeah, Lysindra, you mean?
Lysindra, yeah, rip
Yeah.
her, I think.
I think connections just dropped for a second, but I am back, as you'll all be delighted to know. What was the last thing I said?
I think
like-
it was actually I'm wrong. The ring does whatever Steel wants it to. Also, it can bind other ring bearers to his evil will.
Look, not to follow the trend set by Critical Role this week of annoying its fans by not allowing their players to do anything they wanted, but also that's what I'm doing. So yeah, what bit? What was I? I'm assuming was I? Yeah. Shall I just start again with the bit I was reading? Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Or had I just finished it? I don't know. Had I mentioned a surprisingly well-built counting house?
No.
Don't think so.
Well then. 3 days of travel along the ill-reputed roads of Seragon Forest pass without incident, and it is difficult for Anton to even pick out the stretch of the road where the bandit chief Malrogan cut down his traveling companion Iamion. The rough timber fencing of the town of Elvelyn seems like it could barely hold back the smallest band of raiders, but the borders of Seragon tend to hold firm against the Karohar, even in times of less sporadic violence, with the more ferocious of the Carrot families. It is night when the caravan arrives, but the wagons are circled in the dry mud outside the surprisingly well-built counting house. There it is. Okay. Shall we have another flashback, what you did in between things from someone? We've had Steo. We've had Arindar. Have we had Steo? Did we talk about Tharaban and Karvosti and stuff? I guess there's more to it than that.
It was mentioned mostly in terms of other people asking Steo questions, but
okay, fair enough. Well, then we've had Arindar. We've had Askarai. So we will now have Steo. So we've already know what you've done with regards to Karvosti.
Yeah. So
what else?
I have spent a little while looking over and sorry to kind of break kayfabe, if that's the correct way of saying it, but I spent a little while this session reading over the source books and looking over what Steo's build is. And I know we've talked in principle about not wanting everyone in the group to have Lore Master, but my end goal, I think, is Ironsworn, and that has quite a lot of prerequisite skills that I don't have, one of which is Lore Master. So I would like to have spent this time, as I mentioned, kind of running the route between Karvosti and the Lake Volgoma settlements, and specifically learning Odav and Zarak and Bayagor, the languages.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And for Ironsworn, I think you'll just need it at novice, right? So
yeah, but I need 3 things at novice, including marksman, which is a pain in the neck. But agile combat is pretty broken.
Yeah, it would make sense that you would be able to speak that. So with this circumstance and that being what you're moving towards. So yeah, absolutely. You spend time around the edges of Lake Volgoma with in various places. You have at least one potential date waiting for you in Archbridge for a start. Yeah, something did occur to us though. This is an interesting thing to maybe get into at the end of the session about the retirement plan at the nice Zarak village on the borders of Lake Volgoma. And I'm really interested in having this conversation. So remind me of it when the session's over. But yeah, absolutely. And I take it that means you're spending 10 points of XP on Lawmaster.
Yep. Ching, 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 ching.
Okay. Sounds great. Okay. Well, then. The Day of Blessings in Elvelyn seems almost subdued compared to the other towns you've visited. The traders, furriers, and foresters of the settlement seem to have an air of pessimism and ill favour to them that even the saintly benedictions of the Lightbringer cannot breach. And your mood matches theirs as the caravan departs for the southwest, following the road along the edge of Seragon Forest as a summer storm begins to brood on the eastern horizon over the rolling hills that mark the eastern half of Seragon. Let's have a bit of a thing from someone. He says, kind of forgetting who has and hasn't gone just yet again. I think it's just Arindar and Alindra who haven't done a second one. I think. So, Arendar, please.
Is this as what we're doing as we go?
Yeah, like
Then I would maybe try and talk to the light bringer, because you said Father Savola's mission in Blackmoor had shut down, didn't you?
It had shut down, and it wasn't really confirmed that it was definitely him who'd left, but a group of individuals, like a covered wagon and stuff, that people had kind of assumed was Sarvola, had left Thistlehold by the west gate sometime during the Witch Hammer.
Then I would like to have a quiet word with Desaba about the great need that has been left in Blackmoor, that an element of the church was fulfilling, and perhaps the church could continue to fulfill for the good of the inhabitants of Blackmoor.
Desaba definitely. Well, let's have the conversation. She kind of nods somberly and says, "Well, Sadar, I do very much agree with you, and have had many conversations with Father Elfeno, a man of faith and a man of very good intentions. But I feel that not enough is being done as well. And I feel that Sarvola's work was filling a gap that should not have existed. That gap is there again now, more so than ever, perhaps."
The numbers at Blackmoor swelled after the need for labor following the sinkhole, and I fear that as work slowly dries up, the situation will become even more desperate.
You are right. I have no easy answers. Perhaps if we were in Thistlehold, you and I, we could take some action ourselves, but we are not for the time being. I will reach out and try and get some action on this from various philanthropic individuals and agencies within Thistlehold, but ultimately, and I know this is difficult to hear when you are young and full of hope, the situation in Blackmoor is well known to everyone there already. And if no one is reaching out and making a change, it is likely, Sir Aaron, that is because the situation is as they wish it. But I will do what I can. I will write and I will use my influence, but I may not return to Thistlehold for some time.
Thank you for any assistance you are able to commit.
And in the meantime, Prius bless you for your good works. Even if others do not see, I do. And so does Prius.
Thank you, Lightbringer.
Okay. The coverings on the wagons are pulled further forward to cover even the drivers as the rain hammers down without mercy. At first, this was a relief from the still summer heat, but now anyone walking or on horseback is soaked to the skin. Thunder constantly rumbles, and as darkness starts to fall, the landscape is briefly illuminated by the flash of lightning impacting on a nearby hilltop. Erfon scrambles up the hill with some curiosity and comes back saying that it split a large rock in two. He carries with him a fragmented tube of glass-like material he says he found near the split. which he had to pick up with thick leather gloves because it was still steaming with heat in the cool rain. That night, a fire inside one of the larger tents is risked with considerable caution, and in the morning you wake to a welcome silence as the heat of the sun raises a mist from the sodden ground. Stephen, Elindra.
How does Elindra respond to a misty morning after a storm? I think Elindra is a bit of a creature of habit, and I think some of those, some of the training that came in from the kind of Templar time is still kind of ingrained in her. So I think she's probably, up quite early and kind of doing training and exercise with anyone else in the kind of caravan that's around. So I think Elindra does combat training, which is a really ham-fisted way of segueing into just sort of mentioning that I've also spent a bit of XP.
Sure, absolutely.
So since the last adventure, I bought adept level polearm mastery, which for anybody that was, I think we established partway through last time that I had not fully understood the rules and thought that I kind of got that free long attack when engaging anyone, and it was only once per round. Now it is anyone. Yeah. So that's
you've corrected. It's like
So now I'm no longer accidentally cheating.
So nothing will particularly change, but now we're following the rules.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I suppose, I mean, in terms of kind of flavor and stuff, like I don't have like a specific scene or a conversation to have, but just note that out of the forest, I think she's almost more relying on that kind of like routine and regime to like just try and stay like honed and kind of combat ready and stuff.
Yeah,
because I guess we've not really encountered any actual trouble. So I guess it gets a bit easy just to kind of sit in the wagons and yeah.
So I think like if you do kind of like your drills when you wake up in the morning regularly, I think you will end up being joined by, obviously Revelia will definitely join you with that, but after probably the first couple of mornings, Thenring also joined you because he knows the drills. So he found it useful to do that, and you've also found it useful to have someone else to help teach Revelia swordplay, because as you learned very early on in your training, like if you only learn from one person, then you learn all their bad form as well. So it's handy to have an extra person. And you know what? A couple of the other like mercenaries will also kind of join you and occasionally ask for pointers because they see that you're obviously good with the blade. And also every now and then Urfons decides to join you, kind of following the Templar drills with almost immediate expertise, which with some but he seems to find it very satisfying. And at one point Revelia asks him kind of why he wants to learn them, and he very straightforwardly says, well, I think I might have to kill some Templars sometime soon. It'll be handy to know how they fight.
It's I mean that's basically not bad,
Everyone's in this vignette except the polearm party member.
But I think Steve chose to be in there.
They're drilling with swords. You could be that.
I thought I thought you were
polearm mastery
because your one counts as long now because
of
so
it's called polearm mastery, but Elindra is actually using
I'm doing it with
a long sword with it. Yeah,
a big sword. Yeah,
can't remember if you have a long sword or a great sword. Not
it's down here. It's a bastard sword.
No, that's a long sword.
Yeah.
In the mostly made up D&D nonsense categorization.
I think
some application to the real world.
It's a long sword, or you can use it as a one-handed if maybe, but
indeed, like that is why a bastard sword is called a bastard sword, because it is not fully one thing or another. It's also referred to as a hand and a half sword.
Yeah. But yeah, like I guess it's not exclusively a ex Templar training. I suppose there would be
No.
like ex Town Guard, ex military, ex like Queen's
exactly.
Rangers. Like there's a number of different backgrounds of people that end up as
There's lots
mercenaries.
of reasons, why people may have ended up in the agency or as a well-paid mercenary. Yeah.
Aaron would be interested in joining in those drills because he obviously uses a very different style of sword fighting, and he's always been a little bit curious on the more strength-based style.
I could just picture basically the whole party, like assorted people, all having a grand old time training against each other's fighting styles until like Ascarise just stood up a nearby tree.
Let's
Just being like, I win.
Absolutely. Although, speaking of someone being outlandishly dominant, occasionally the training sessions break down into more, after drills, people tend to do sparring. And the most dramatic happenings of these are one morning when Fenring kind of, in a friendly manner, asks Urfons if his sword is just glittery and shiny or whether it's useful in an actual fight. Which he doesn't mean insultingly. He's just trying to, sort of have some
He's trying to start
sparring, grand
in a nice-
banter, in an essential way. Urfon grins and they agree to a sparring duel, which is over within around 20 seconds, with Fenring lying on his back on the floor and his blade about 10 feet away from him, quivering in the ground. He shakes his head to clear it from the thump he's taken, and kind of Urfons reaches forward with his hand, and as he pulls him up, Fenring mutters, "I'm glad I'm not the Templar you'll be fighting, Master Goblin." As everyone kind of walks away from it, you hear one of the caravan guards go, "I bet you saw him move."
Don't underestimate.
Turns out other people aren't used to Urfons in the same way you are.
Our little
I think-
chainsaw friend.
Amongst all this, Ascry might ask Arendar for some sword fighting lessons. Probably gets beaten up pretty badly, but
I love
Nobody cares about Steo.
Steel's
You
welcome
do
to
stuff.
join in, but it's just like chosen to complain instead.
Exactly. Which, in fairness, is probably my best.
Have you met Chris? Like, needlessly personal. The little friend on Chris's head approved and fell over in support of my insult. So, to reach the settlement of Odal, you have to turn briefly to the west on the third day of travel, and cresting a rise, the town opens up ahead of you. With no walls or fences at all, Odal is as much a mass conglomeration of farmland and small holdings as it is a town. It sprawls across the fertile valley that lies between Seragon Forest and a small range of low mountains to the south. Some taller buildings are situated a couple of kilometers ahead, and the caravan makes for them past fields where people stop their labor to watch curiously as you travel past. I'm not going to, just an eye on the time, I'm not going to go through a whole round of scenes again, but I will give an opportunity every time there's a break in, every time there's a paragraph break, to offer to see if anyone wants to jump. We've all done 2 each, so I think that's fine. But if anyone wants to do something else, and wants to jump in with one, say your piece. Imagine the countdown music.
So they were building a bridge, weren't they? Or have we passed that area now? I think a long time ago somebody crossed a bridge in a storm.
This is actually an absolutely ideal point to bring up the map, which I believe John has under control, because, and let's explain this, you're actually now no longer on the path that Anton took to Ravenna. So if John, when John brings up the map, I will explain in more detail. But if we remember, here we go. Can you zoom in on the Duchy of Seragon there, please, John? Seragon is near the top right. Oh no, the previous one, please. As in the previous. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, if you could zoom in on Seragon quite a bit, that would be great. Is that as far as you can go? No, there we go. And over to the right a bit. Okay, perfect. Okay, well, too much. Bit more to the right, please, if you're going to do that. Where it was perfect, but okay. Can everyone see where Castor is there? Yeah, at the north of Seragon. Someone needs to come off mic, otherwise I can't hear you. Come on, Mike. Otherwise I can't hear you when I'm asking things.
Yes, we can see things.
Okay. You see how the road, you can't see the roads terribly well on this, but like you see how the road moves around the east of Seragon Forest there. And you've passed Elvelin. The road actually follows the forest round to Odal. You can see at the south part of the forest there. Anton, in a single spark, his little interlude story, went straight across Seragon from Elvelin to Ravenna, crossed over this like rolling series of hills that make up that part of Seragon. The caravan can't do that. The caravan needs a road. It can't travel across hills. So you're having to swoop down to Odal and then cross the road directly to the east to Ravenna. At least you, as far as you're aware, that's the intent. That's what is intended as you travel further east. So to answer your question, Chris, the river Dudrum, that flanks Ravenna, it has yes, there is a bridge being built, but slow progress is apparently being made, as far as anyone is aware. And there is, yes, a ferry crossing. The ferry crossing is right next to Ravenna, so you're quite a ways away from there yet. But well remembered in terms of the sequence of things that happened to Anton. But you have now deviated off those. You have not been to Odal before, but well remembered. Does that answer anyone's questions? And does anyone have any other questions about the map or this area of Symbaroum? Because while Anton and his other companions have been here before, this specific group hasn't necessarily been further east than Castor. So do we have any other questions about the map and various things?
I presume that outside of Seragon, it is like primarily farmland around here.
It certainly is around Odal, yeah. But the as you were going through past Seragon Forest, all the other land you could see was like wilderness.
Okay,
in the north of Ambria, a lot of the land is wilderness, and there is sporadic farming and settlements. The further you go south, particularly in Indarian, the duchy where Indaros is, everything is now farmland, essentially. There's very little wildland left, as the people swarmed over the Titans. Also worth noting on this map, just to confuse you, the dotted lines are not roads. The dotted lines are the boundaries between counties and duchies, counties and baronies. The roads are on there, right? You can see them now. They're light paths. It's very difficult because this is a screen grab I took, so the quality's a little low. I'll try and you know what? I'm sure we can try and get a higher quality version of it to distribute around everyone. Because on the actual version in the PDF, you can see it clear as day. But on this, it's, you know, doing a screen grab reduces the quality. So, yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Right. Thank you for that, John. Let's move on. So, as I say, we're in this conglomeration of farmland and small holdings called Odal. And the center of Odal is marked by a huge common, ringed by buildings and only partly occupied by a thriving food market. Clearly, many come from all around, and there are several trade caravans buying and selling goods. One of the larger buildings was a Templar chapter house, presumably located here because of the relative proximity to Prios's domain to the west. It now stands empty. thick metal-plated door swinging gently in a swelling summer breeze. Let's have one of the other kind of flashback fill-in things from people who still have to do that, which I think is just Elindra and Anton now. Let's have that from Father Anton. What has Father Anton been up to since the close of the Witch Ham? Has he spent any XP as well?
No, he hasn't spent any XP. He's got to do some serious saving with XP. The one thing that Anton would probably have done, and I don't think this would have been covered by like the selling of goods and stuff like that, is that in our last expedition into Davokar, I think it was on the way back from the village in the east, I think that we encountered like a troll being birthed out of this chrysalis thing, and I think that Anton took a
an ogre.
An ogre, sorry,
rather than a troll, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think that Anton took like a sample of like the kind of sack that it came from, and like there was some discussion about like taking that back to Thistlehold and speaking with maybe Ordo Magica people to find out, like, because I think it's just like such a rare thing that the world has potentially never seen before. So yeah, Anton was going to try and show them his notes and show them the sample and stuff like that. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? You can let's have a scene with Master Gonkai, Ganderald's superior in the Order Magica. You sold him some of Manandra Nayar's writings anyway, so we can have like some interaction with him and maybe visit him with Ganderald to transfer the writings, and maybe you mention it at that.
Sure.
He looks up as you mention it and says, "You have samples from one of the chrysalis?"
I do have a small sample. It's been in my possession for quite some weeks, if not months now. Probably not as
dried out a little bit. Father Anton, I will give you another 10 thaler right now if I can take that off your hands.
Well, you're more than welcome to it for 10 thaler.
1, 2, 3. He counts out the coins in front of him on the table and passes it over to you. What do you think this signifies, Father Anton?
What do you mean by signifies? It's just the way of the world, isn't it?
If the ogre emerges from the chrysalis, let me put it another way. A butterfly emerges from a chrysalis, no?
True.
And a caterpillar goes in. So...
Oh, I see. Well, is there some speculation about what beast forms the chrysalis? Any ideas that are being floated around in these academic circles?
There is. And I could perhaps give you a little bit of information that I have from an fellow scholar of the arcane and biological. Think on this, Father Anton. Think on this. Every year, ogres wander out of the edges of the forest, empty of memory, skill, anything but their physical prowess, and an urge to live among other sentient beings. And every year, Father Anton, goblins beyond count go into the forest and vanish. I was laughed at when this theory was initially proposed, for I supported it wholeheartedly, but I have confidence that these goblins, they know what goes in the chrysalis. And we must seek out goblin sages and shaman, and they will be able to inform us.
It's certainly something to think about. I'll have to remember that on my travels. Keep my ear close to the ground for these Goblin Shaman.
You do that, and if you find any further information, Father Anton, I will gladly purchase it off you. You and your companions have proved most fecund so far. Now, please, these writings, I am desperate to learn of them.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. That bit was definitely funnier if you've read the relevant bits of the information in the core book. But it's fine. So let's go back to Odal. The folk of Odal seem to have been deeply unsettled by the departure of the Templars, who provided considerable security to the open town. They are very grateful.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, it's impromptu roleplay between the four of us time.
For the arrival of the Lightbringer and the senior days pass. No, go on.
We
Yeah,
lost
you cut
you
out for quite a bit there.
about 30
my
seconds.
God.
So.
Oh,
There
Jesus.
was
Okay.
the thing about they used to like the safety of the Templars, and then I think maybe we both disappeared.
Okay. The folk of Odal seem to have been deeply unsettled by the departure of the Templars, who provided considerable security to the open town. They are very grateful for the arrival of the Lightbringer, and the senior farmers and landholders spend time thanking you all for the Day of Blessings, feeling now that Prios has not abandoned them to their fate. So I'll get all that. Is good. Okay. Just aware of time, I think I'll slightly reduce the chances for a jump in, but we'll have another one before the end of the session. Another 3 days pass quietly along the eastern road to the Duchy of New Berator, as hills rise and fall to both north and south. The further east you go, the more fellow travelers you encounter, until the road is nearly thronged with merchants, mostly Ambrian, but considering how far you are from the forest edge, there are a surprising number of Odavs, Vajvod, and even the occasional Carrot or Zarek. Elindra, let's do your flashbacky thingy. Is there anything you like to flag that you've done, or anything else since the Witch Hammer?
I don't think there's anything that we haven't really talked about on stream. I think as the epilogue. Did we cover that Elindra went out and got some new tabards, right?
Yeah.
Stuff from Revelia. Yeah, I don't know. I think the only other thing that would have been on Elindra's mind, having got out of the forest and spending some time in Thistlehold, would be find a good inn where she could have a really good bath.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess maybe try to start some correspondence with the Auto Magica Master, whose name
Master Furia.
Furia, who is, I believe, in Indoros, and who said to kind of to get back in touch once we'd finished our previous adventures in the forest. Like, he might be able to help Elindra find out some things about the weird powers that she manifests that seem to be why she was kicked out of the Templars in the first place. I guess she would maybe write him a letter and kind of sort of say, that she was going to be going on tour with the Saber, and that might bring her to Indoros, and that it would be good to meet with him. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And you could definitely dispatch a letter. You won't obviously receive anything yet in return, but yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, but I'm alive and I might be coming.
Yeah. Okay. Late on the third day of the Eastern Road, you arrive at the ferry crossing on the rambunctious River Doodram, which is significantly less fast and overflowing than the last time Father Anton was here, but still roaring and swirling. On learning of the identity of your ward from Fenring, the ferry operators attempt to carry the Lightbringer across ahead of the queue, but she refuses this offer. As a result, each wagon crosses the river after nightfall, every traveller and horse doused in spray from the wild river, but managing to keep their feet on the gently bucking rafts. This takes over 2 hours. And despite how close the walls of Ravenna are, the Lightbringer orders that instead the nearby inn of the Weary Legs should be paid for accommodation for all the caravan for the night. Coin also changes hands for a considerable spread of food, and by the time the midnight call goes out, you are all sated on the simple but high-quality buttered bread, meats, cheeses, and berries offered up by an awed innkeeper. In the morning, you are summoned to the Lightbringer's room by Fenring, who stands by the door as she welcomes you from a stool next to a desk scattered with papers. Well, Thistlehold's heroes, and dare I say, heroes of Castor and Carvosti as well, if my ears do not fail me. Ravenna is close, and I must confess that we are not here by accident, as I am sure Father Anton, if not some others of you, have already surmised. I plan on remaining here at the crossing for a day or two. It has been over 3 weeks since we departed Thistlehold, and I am not a young woman. But I wonder if you might perform a service for me. A scholar and a friend named Father Ombardo sent me a concerned letter not so long before we left, and I would not have him worry unduly while I idle here. Please, go to Ravenna, inform him we have arrived. If he does not wish to wait a day or two, then he is welcome to accompany you back here. Oh, and please ensure that all is well in the town. The councillors and burghers of both Elvelyn and O'Dal confided in me that they had heard of some kind of upheaval in the Sun Church here. More upheaval, I suppose. It would be good to not stride into Ravenna blind to what we might encounter. Is that all agreeable?
Of course,
All clearly understood.
Wonderful. Then I wish you the blessings of Prios. She gives, and here's a little nugget as well. She gives you all a blessing of Prios, which I think, as we've stated, is a kind of drawing a sun symbol in the air. But I uncovered extra lore from the books of something called the Sun Sign, which is a more formal gesture of Prios that members of the Theurgy do with each other, and like various things. So we can start using this a bit more now. And it's a bit more interesting than the one we came up with. And what it is, so we know, I copied it out and everything. The gesture known as the Sun Sign, with which all worshippers of Prios end their prayers, salute senior priests and theurgs, and bolster themselves in times of danger, has remained unchanged for centuries. An open hand with extended fingers is held straight up towards the sky and then moved to one's face, then to the heart with the palm facing inwards. The same sign is used by the Church of Dead Prios, but with a closed fist. So let's have it in a different way, so it's definitely not. So let's have the palm upwards, and then to your face, and then the palm on the heart. So a kind of Prios in the sky, I guess. And I think of Prios, and he is in my heart kind of thing, I suppose. Anyway, that's the Sun Sign, and that's what the Lightbringer does to Father Anton. So I'm assuming we're happy to immediately go sort this and leave the inn in this morning. And the inn is not far from the walls of Ravenna at all. Like, it's about a 10-minute walk, if that.
Yeah.
Father Anton has already been, and he definitely knows the way. You kind of walk along the path by the Doodrum. There's lots of people around, and as you get close to the walls of Ravenna, which have that sprawling, if we remember, a sprawling clanfolk settlement just outside the walls as well. And as you walk along there are lots and lots of people around, and also like the aura of the place isn't entirely festive, but there's certainly some kind of festivities kind of in the offing, essentially. Like there are like long tables that seem to be being brought and set out in various places. There are pennant strings being strung up in yellow, green, and red between buildings. You see several song and dance groups rehearsing, and there are kind of like little stages and podiums being built for like plays and things like that. So there's definitely something going on. and yet also a kind of strange, slightly subdued atmosphere. You arrive near the city gates. There are lots of people around, like I say, doing these preparations or moving around or watching other people do them. You don't know where to find Father Ambardo. Anton did meet him last time he was here. He's the priest who came to the gates of the mound and led you in and led you to the Duke. You don't know where he lives at all. But he certainly seemed like someone who'd be quite well known around town if he's like the advisor to Duke Inadar. So maybe you could ask someone official or just anyone around. It's up to you. What do you think? I'm guessing Anton might take the lead here, but what do you like? What do we think we do to try and find Father Ambardo first?
I mean, my assumption, if you're looking for someone of the Sun Church, is to go check in the Sun Church.
I agree, although there was a sort of word of caution from De Sabre that things may not be entirely well in the Sun Church. So I may suggest that we go to the Sun Church and sort of just casually watch from afar and just see who enters and exits, things like that, before we go in asking questions and alerting people to our presence.
Sure. There was also, I would also flag that you did notice, Father Anton, last time that Ambardo seemed to get very warm greetings from everyone apart from other members of the Curia who seemed to intentionally ignore him.
I'd forgotten that, so thank you.
So, no, absolutely. So I would say that, and I'm not implanting this as Anton's brain thought or action, but like, you might, Anton might actually assume that the Sun Church might not be where Father Ambardo could be found. Like I say, there are some guards nearby. There are like various other just people setting things up who are nearby who look quite friendly and are chatting with people. Are you making any kind of like, you're unlikely to find him without asking someone about it?
Yeah, I think then with that memory suddenly reappearing in Anton's mind, I think it would just make sense to ask the nearest guards about his whereabouts. So I will go up to the nearest guards.
One of them kind of nods as you approach and says, "Oh, Father, good morning."
Good morning. A quick moment of your time, if I may. My companions and I have had a long journey here, and we are.
Of course. Are you here for the Duke's speech?
Oh no, we are not. Hadn't realised that there was such a speech going on. Is it for a special occasion or?
It's the anniversary of the founding of New Berator, Father.
Oh, I apologize for my ignorance on that matter. Yeah, I won't take up too much of your time. My friends and I are looking for the whereabouts of Father Ambardo, and I wonder if you may know where my companions and I would be able to find him.
The guard's face immediately drops, and she gives you a surprised look. Father Ambardo, why do you ask? Have you not heard? He is dead, burned to death. And I think we will leave our first session there. This has been the first session of an Throne of Thorns story called What's Bred in the Bone. This first session, however, was entirely me getting you to the beginning of What's Bred in the Bone. And hopefully we enjoyed that. Let's get all the lovely promo out of the way before we start looking at questions and comments and blah, 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 blah. If you check below, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on Twitch, you'll see a number of links to YouTube and to Twitch, as well as to Discord, social media, Patreon, merch store, 1,000 other things. Well, no, that's actually it. But in theory, 1,000 other things. Check them out. Have a look. See if you like them. We run other games as well. Obviously, Symbaroum is on Wednesdays. Mondays at the moment is alternating between We Deal in Lead and Warhammer. Thursdays has one more session of Wicked Ones to go, which I believe is scheduled for the 23rd of May, before it switches on the 30th. to the Yellow King, which is a new long-running campaign that I will be GMing for. We also run one-shots on a hopefully monthly basis, although we be getting quite bad at doing that. The next one, which should be around the beginning of June, will be Cloud Empress, which we've been looking forward to running for a while. I think that's all the promo, unless we have any wonderful little follows or anything, which we don't. Hopefully, if you watch this on YouTube tonight, our first YouTube stream, hopefully you enjoyed it. Apart from the person who immediately flagged that they weren't enjoying it, which was lovely to have. We've barely had anyone like being unpleasant to us on Twitch since we started this 3 years ago. And the first time we stream on YouTube, someone's a bit of a dick. So
it felt very YouTube, didn't it? Like,
yes, it felt very, very internet, very YouTube. Like,
we've arrived.
Really hit me with some nostalgia. Although obviously I'm massively gutted that one person didn't care for what we were doing. I don't think I'll sleep tonight. So with that in mind, can we get some good old comments and questions flagged up on stream, please, John? Alexander McFarlane, yay, first time watching live. And I believe our first non-crew comment on in chat for YouTube. I think yes, probably. Let me just double check that before someone goes, it was me. No, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because it was me and Stephen before that. So yes, thank you, Alexander.
You win
well done.
You win a free hour-long debate about the nature of a buffet.
Oh, I was so glad I mentioned multiple feasts and food things tonight, and no one mentioned buffets. I was so happy.
I mentioned it in the back chat. I didn't want to disrupt the flow.
Chris, he was muted and you were reading, but he was mouthing.
You can't sneak a buffet past us, Matt. It's not happening.
I mean, same.
I mean, I'm disappointed that no one checked in on the originator buffet while we were in Castle.
I left it open. I said, are you checking in on anyone else?
Sure.
Yeah.
No one went
I don't know they're there.
It's true. Next, please. Mr. Lyramian. I just want to say I'm happy Symbaroum is back in the menu. Thank you. We are.
Why is it phrased like that? I'm worried.
It's going to eat us. Blade Runner was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed Blade Runner, but it is lovely to have Symbaroum back. I had to rewrite this session earlier today when I completely changed my mind on what I was doing with it. And it went really well. I got some writing in there I'm very happy with, but it was also lovely to be back in the world and strangely lovely to be prepping for a session where every 2 sentences I have to go, shit, I have to check that and go through one of 10 different books to try and find the detail to make sure I'm staying in canon. Yeah,
that sounds great.
There we go. Yeah,
it is
good
good.
Stuff.
I'm really. It's just nice to be back in Symbaroum.
It is. Stephen said this when I mentioned Fenring Melian being a trading family. He's from a family of millionaires. And Stephen, it's been great having you on the show. I was so sorry that you have to go. But
someone had to say it, and
no one had to say it.
They didn't.
Steve, let's just be completely clear.
Someone had to say it.
No, I think this is he's not saying someone had to say it. He's saying Stephen had to say it.
Yeah. I thought that I showed great restraint keeping that in the comments rather than on the stream, but now here we are. So best of both worlds. You're welcome.
Lovely. Next, please, John. Nightbites, your return has been anticipated, and of course, the coveted #NeverRegretPappy things. It's so bizarre having that as like one of our big things that we say, given how fucking long it's been since the player who even said that has been in the campaign. So yeah.
We need more emotes is the answer to this question. If only we weren't doing a massive art project at the minute.
We need to mention Pappy more often throughout Symbaroum.
Look, all I'm saying is that we have a merch store. That merch store has a #NeverRegretPappy shirt, and no one has bought it yet. That's all I'm saying. So it's all very big talk about #NeverRegretPappy from everyone. But is anyone willing to put their money where their mouth is?
It is bright orange, though.
Look,
What's the problem?
It'll help.
Yeah,
you
the same
never
color as
forget
Ephenea's hair. because I'm trying to add a remembrance for the dead.
Spoilers for future sessions. Father Lombardo got burned to death for regretting Pappy. So don't
Deserved.
That's
like
why
him.
it's orange.
Don't do
Yeah.
it. It is literally orange because Ephenea's hair was orange.
That makes sense.
Or red. Whatever. Partly that and partly another reason, which I won't go into, which isn't that interesting. Karai Shinobi, woot! I made it on time to check this out, and we are delighted to have you with us. And everyone, all of our friends on YouTube. Yes, very good. Next, Steve. At some point, the bigger score will get personal, and it'll all go to shit. Yes, the forbidden mix of the personal and the score. Dreaded. Sam, can you send this bar selfie onto Semel, please, Malahai? Yeah, just in your telepathic WhatsApp group chat.
I just love the idea that Steo's been handed the equivalent of like a County Lines burner phone, and he's like, "Where's the social networking on this thing? I want Instagram."
The next time I get into the Hall of Dying Dreams, I'm taking a whiteboard and a book on TCP.
I heard that as PCP, and I was like, "This is taking a turn."
I heard TCP and went, "Why are you taking a book about a bottle of antiseptic into an elf place?" I'm so confused.
All
Doesn't
of
matter.
these sound like fantastic future possible episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely seems like where I'd take the story.
Well,
Steve,
it's only natural.
Malahai will soon be setting up polls and an announcements channel where no one else can post. Again, I feel I feel picked on. Yeah. Steve, in tomorrow's headlines, Matt shamelessly copies Critical Role, as I often do. Burdened as I am with an overabundance of love for Critical Role and everything they brought to the hobby.
Oh, this has been out.
To go with my love for D&D and all that it's done.
This has been a dangerously critical episode towards Critical Role, I feel. Dangerous.
Everyone who knows me knows that I'd never be outwardly, vociferously, publicly critical of Critical Role. It's all behind.
Yeah, you never want to start a fight with someone bigger than you.
See, at some point, the bigger score will get personal, and it'll all go to shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are right. You are right in a theoretical sense, but outside of theory, I think I could take Matt Mercer. So we'll just leave it there. I'll just leave that on the table. And if any charities want to get in touch and arrange that fight.
Episode 0 beef is a new record for us.
Look, we got the more handsome Matt though. Look, I'll take it.
That's a nice
But
comment.
even I am struggling to agree with that. He's a handsome chap. But I'd fucking dust him. No, I'm sure he could also beat me up. That's fine. 42. I would think that Palm faces the father after the hand
I
up.
think it means the face. So hand up.
So gather some sun rays in your hand, place them into your head and your heart. Yeah, it's only because the description in the book specifically says that the heart is facing in. But I think we could do it like that if that feels more. Yeah, it does kind of feel more. I don't know.
Unless it's like your Trios shining from you or something.
Yeah, I don't know, like a shining brow thing. Yeah, Chris will be on board with that.
I do propose you have to kind of shake the hand about to gather as much sun as possible.
We're not doing the Rimmer salute. We're not doing the Rimmer salute. We're not doing the Rimmer salute. This will not become the next buffet. I refuse.
What's up with Baramo?
How do you think Baramo?
Good to be back, guys. Really good to be back.
Where's the Baramo recap in this reunion?
Christ, you say you can beat Matt Mercer. You say you can beat Matt Mercer once, and everyone decides to turn on you.
What sort of rock would you have to be living under to have not heard of Beramo at this stage? I mean, it's an
Sure,
institution.
Yeah. Our fan favorite character. Well, not that it's not the fans, really. It's just you. It's just you lot. So there we go. Next, have we got anything else?
No, that's everything.
That's everything. There we go. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you to my wonderful players for starting up Symbaroum again with me. Thank you to everyone out there who joined us on Twitch and YouTube. And we'll see you next week on Twitch and YouTube for more. In the meantime, take care, stay safe. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.